Hello, my name is Ashley Armand. I'm the Deputy Director of Community Engagement at the MBTA, and I'll be the moderator for tonight's meeting. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. Tonight's meeting is to share information and receive feedback on the MBTA's FY 2026-2030 Capital Investment Plan. Mike Malia, our Deputy Chief of Capital Strategy, will give the presentation, and we ask that you hold all the comments until the end of the presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to let you know that our General Manager, Phil Ang, is in attendance and would like to provide a brief opening remark to all of you. GM Ang, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Ashley, and thank you to everybody who's taken time out of your busy day to join this public meeting. This is a very important part of our process because everything that we do at the MBTA with regards to delivering of service and delivering a capital program, that feedback is invaluable to help us shape, make tough decisions, but to deliver projects that result in improved service, safe service, more reliable service, but a service that the public can be proud of, one that is safe, modern, and state-of-the-art. The capital program that we're looking at, we'll be talking about, is for a 5-year period from fiscal year 2026 through 2030. It will be able to allow us to continue to progress projects that already have been started, to progress new projects, but to deliver those necessary means and methods of how do we actually improve service and build a system that serves the needs of today, but serves the future generations that we all are focused on. It is a living document. We welcome the feedback. It's important. And it's very vital for everyone to know that priorities can change over time, but right now, it's definitely a focus on ensuring we protect our existing infrastructure that we own. And at the same time, how do we deliver and keep moving projects forward that actually are modernizing and improving our system as we go forward? It's a balance of both, but we're not going to be sacrificing safety, reliability to do those. Those will always be done first and foremost. It'll be our infrastructure from track, signal, power, stations, facilities necessary to keep their equipment running. And then, of course, all the rolling stock, the buses, the boats, the trains, paratransit vehicles, etc. So I just want to welcome everyone. I know there's a lot to be discussed here, and know that there's other public meetings as well. So don't worry if you don't get all your comments in or you have a comment after the fact that you want to make. There's much more time to be able to provide that feedback to us. So with that, I'll turn it back to the team. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, General Manager Ang. We really appreciate your comments this evening. And we'd also like to go over a few announcements and meeting controls for folks who are not familiar with Zoom. Next slide, please. Next slide. Our first announcement is that all MBTA activities, including public meetings, are free of discrimination. The MBTA complies with all federal and state civil rights requirements preventing discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, limited English proficiency, and additional protected characteristics. We welcome the diversity from across our entire service area. If you have any questions or concerns, you can reach out to us at our link here and reach out to the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. Next slide. We'd also like to let you know that we're offering interpretation this evening. In your meeting, we'll have interpretation in Spanish as well as Chinese. Our Spanish interpreter is David Perez, and our Chinese-speaking interpreter is Horan He. We also have ASL tonight. Our ASL interpreters are Aaron Foley and Alicia Brand. In your meeting webinar controls, you can click on the interpretation. That's a small globe icon, and click the language that you'd like to hear, and you'll be brought to your interpretation room. Next slide, please. If you have any technical question about Zoom or the features of the meeting, you can use the chat function. Our technical assistant will attempt to troubleshoot your problem and get back to you. Next slide. We also have closed captioning for this meeting. You can click Show Caption to start viewing captioning. Just as a tip, you can click and drag the closed captioning to move its position in the meeting window and adjust the caption size through the caption settings function. Next slide. And with that, I'll pass this off to Mike Malia. Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ashley. Hi, my name is Mike Malia. I'm the Deputy Chief of Capital Strategy, and I'm here to present our proposed FY2026-2030 Capital Investment Plan. Next slide, please. So in accordance with Governor Healy, Lieutenant General Governor Driscoll, Secretary Tibbetts-Nutt, and the General Manager, the proposed FY2026-2030 CIP delivers meaningful results for the needs of today as we lay the groundwork for tomorrow. Our CIP is driven by three key objectives: timely maintenance now, building upon recent progress through the TIP; building for the future to set a strong foundation for future infrastructure while seeking additional funding; and improving service for riders by improving frequency, reliability, decarbonization, and rider enhancements as outlined in full T ahead. Next slide, please. Our capital program strategy goes beyond just the CIP. We continue to develop a strategic approach to advance our vision by focusing on strategic processes. We are improving asset information, improving asset data, and developing asset class plans can help us better inform investment priorities and ensure our state of good repair needs. Right-sizing our workforce and streamlining right-of-way access. By increasing our maintenance workforce capacity and enhancing our right-of-way access capabilities, we can reduce costs and disruptions while improving service. Pursuing funding opportunities. We are aggressively pursuing grant opportunities to increase available funding for key capital projects and programs, allowing us to deliver more improvements sooner. We are also seeking out opportunities to enhance capital projects with development opportunities in the region, including in areas like Alewife, Everett, and Lynn. We are advancing organizational delivery by advancing internal coordination with operations teams to ensure a comprehensive agency-wide approach to capital investments, enhancing maintenance, performing regular one-time and programmatic maintenance to build on the progress made during the track improvement program, and building for the future, ensuring we take a balanced approach to address our immediate needs while incorporating long-range planning as we continue to build for the future. Next slide, please. And we're making progress already. We are delivering meaningful results. Asset planning information is now informing projects. Our asset class planning efforts, are supporting development of critical capital project scopes to address our most critical needs, especially within our power assets. We're also delivering meaningful results with our workforce and right-of-way access. We've refined our internal process to access the right-of-way, ensuring more effective coordination for our right-sized workforce and better results and shorter diversions for riders. And discretionary grant awards. Our aggressive and strategic pursuit of discretionary grants has yielded over $830 million since the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law. We are also making progress in providing projects on time and on budget. One of the key aspects here is through organizational delivery efficiency. We have increased our collaboration with operations teams to increase efficient project delivery and minimize rider impact. Key aspects here are insourcing and enhanced coordination and planning to really make these to really produce our projects better. Program capital maintenance. The track improvement program was completed in 2024, and additional maintenance and inspection work for track, stations, and structures is planned for 2025. We also instituted a review of in-flight capital projects, reviewing all existing projects within our CIP to ensure that they are still progressing towards our long-term goals and still aligned with our needs today. Next slide, please. And just to highlight some recent accomplishments, I mentioned previously the track improvement program, which we are very proud of. TIP removed over 220 speed restrictions and replaced 250,000 feet of rail and improved track reliability across the system, allowing the red line to reach speeds it had not seen before. Now, that's the realm of something that's very large, but even in the realm of small, we've made some terrific progress, with real-time information for riders. The release of the MBTA Go app allows our riders to access real-time information for all fixed route services in a much more accessible way. And we've also launched bus network redesign, with phase 1 enhancing multiple key bus routes and leading to a 60% increase in service frequency, with additional improvements to come. Next slide. Now, as we look at the proposed CIP, we have over 660 projects for a program spend of $9.8 billion over the next 5 fiscal years. That includes approximately $1 billion in new funding. If you're looking at the screen right now, you'll see on the left, we have our program spend broken down by mode, and on the right, we have it by CIP program. Looking at it by mode, you can see our investments are, at least leading our investments, the rapid transit network for $3.8 billion, commuter rail with over $2.5 billion, system-wide improvements, nearly $2.1 billion, and bus improvements for $1.1 billion as well. And these modal investments are a reflection of some substantial investment we're seeing, particularly within vehicles to modernize and replace our fleet, but also within the guideway signals and power, passenger facilities, structures, and maintenance administrative facilities leading the way. Next slide, please. So for some framing right now, the next series of slides will highlight our investments by mode. Along the top ribbon, you'll see helpful information including miles of service, revenue vehicle counts, and average weekday ridership. Then also, we're going to go through and highlight some important programmatic investments along with particular projects. And along the bottom, you'll see the new funding added through this CIP cycle. It's noted in italics. For rapid transit, we have major programmatic investment for the Green Line infrastructure, vehicles, and accessibility with over $1.7 billion in Green Line infrastructure and accessibility upgrades to introduce new Type 10 trains by 2027. Within the rapid transit, another area that we are seeing substantial investment, rapid transit power systems upgrades. We have over $404 million for upgrades for power systems on our rapid transit lines that will increase efficiency, reduce maintenance, and improve reliability, including over $126 million in new funding. And as a project highlight, we'd like to draw attention to the red and orange line vehicles and red and orange line signals programs, with over $777 million to deliver new vehicles and modernized signal equipment on the red and orange lines, improving safety, reliability, and efficiency. Next slide. Within our bus network, we are continuing investment for bus modernization and electrification, with nearly $500 million to construct new and retrofitted bus facilities to prepare for a larger, more efficient fleet of battery electric buses with more frequent service. We are also continuing to invest within bus network redesign and transit priority, with $180 million to continue the implementation of our bus network redesign and improve transit priority infrastructure, including transit signal priority technology. This includes $33 million in new funding. And as a project highlight for the bus, we are bringing our hybrid bus overhauls project with over $47 million for critical midlife overhauls of 45 60-foot hybrid buses, improving the state of our fleet and ensuring safe and reliable service. Nearly all of this funding is new within the CIP. Next slide. Within the commuter rail network, we have substantial investment for commuter rail vehicles with over $710 million in investment for our rail fleet. This includes replacing our oldest locomotives and adding more bi-level coaches, including nearly $190 million in new funding this cycle. We are also continuing our investment in regional rail modernization with $223 million for further investments in regional rail modernization, such as the Fairmount line upgrades to support 20-minute decarbonized service by 2028. And as a project highlight here, something that we are very excited for is North Station Draw 1 bridge replacement, with $679 million in FY2026-2030 out of a total project cost of $1.2 billion. To replace and expand the North Station Draw 1 bridge, which will increase network capacity. This includes the largest grant the MBTA has ever been awarded, a $472 million mega grant that was awarded just in late 2024. Next slide. And then looking at our other modes, for ferry, we have continued system-wide ferry improvements with $50 million for ferry terminal accessibility upgrades and fleet overhauls to support a consistent network of water transportation services. And for paratransit, we have continued investments in the rides vehicle fleet as we strive for seamless transitions between paratransit and fixed route services. Next slide. And looking at system-wide and multimodal projects, we have continued strong investment for structural inspection and repair, with $488 million for investments in structural inspection and repair that support a more proactive approach to maintenance, including $35 million in new funding. For track and facility state of good repair programs, we have $265 million to improve facilities assets and tracks such as stairs, escalators, elevators, emergency fire systems and roofs, and station inspections. This includes $80 million in new funding, and this is all building upon the progress of the track improvement program over the last calendar year and ongoing work we have for comprehensive upgrades for the red line and orange line signals. As a project highlights something that's more rider-facing, we have our countdown clock and PA system upgrades, with $33 million to upgrade rider-facing audio and visual communication equipment in our stations, including countdown clocks and public address systems. Includes $23 million in new funding. As we look at additional investments within the CIP and just looking at these more by investment category, within vehicles, we are investing to overhaul auxiliary power systems on the blue line vehicles, excuse me, and $12.5 million in new funding to upgrade the maintenance of way vehicle fleet. Within passenger facilities, there's $15 million for accessible mini-high platforms at commuter rail stations. This is $15 million in new investment. We are also running out a new bus shelter installation and improvement program with $15 million to seed this program. Within business and operational support, we are continuing to implement our safety management system and investing $2 million in new funding. And we are continuing to invest with additional funding for rail modernization planning. Within structures, we have over $15 million in new funding for our system-wide tunnel inspection program and $6 million to improve bridge safety walkway system-wide, which is a key thing for the safety of our own workers in our workforce. Within guideway signals and power, we have substantial investment to improve maintenance access on the orange line, which makes it easier to perform maintenance and helps minimize the impact of diversions or the like, or any other work that needs to be done. We also have $10 million for early actions to electrify the Newburyport and Rockport line. Within our maintenance and administrative facilities portfolio, we have funding for a new operations control center and over $9 million for improvements to commuter rail facilities. And in our last category here, for technology and innovation, we have over $3 million for heavy rail dispatch system software improvements and over $20 million in new funding for system-wide radio system upgrades. Next slide. Now, we are doing our best right now to address our challenges. We are making progress in the state of good repair. And the 2023 Capital Needs Assessment, or CNAI, identified $24.5 billion in baseline capital needs to bring our system into a state of good repair. Over the past year, we've seen substantial investment to chip away at this, especially within our track and signals program. And we have also we see additional investment right now through this cycle in power systems, including $80 million in state investment through the Commonwealth Transportation Fund, or CTF. And we are very thankful to the governor and the state for this continued support. With over $9.5 billion programmed in the CIP for reliability and modernization efforts, the MBTA is focusing on timely maintenance, building for the future, and improving service for our riders. But even so, significant work remains. We are improving project delivery. In May 2024, the MBTA identified a workforce shortfall of over 1,000 staff needed for safe and reliable service. With support from the Healy Driscoll administration, we have been able to substantially ramp up our workforce and start doing things like insourcing key maintenance and providing better overall access to our right-of-way. It's really made a tremendous improvement to the safety and reliability of our program. But that being said, we still face uncertain federal funding despite strong state support. Federal funding remains uncertain as the bipartisan infrastructure law expires at the end of September of 2026. This is definitely a concern for us. However, the Commonwealth's commitment for recurring funding in the Commonwealth Transportation Fund has unlocked borrowing capacity to support $1.25 billion worth of projects at the MBTA and Mass DOT over the next 5 years. All this being said, substantial capital needs remain unfunded. Given funding constraints, the MBTA was only able to allocate $1,031 million of new funding and new projects as part of this CIP cycle, representing only 8% of total funding requested. When we started this process earlier in the year, there were 254 project requests representing $13.5 billion. Even after going through a departmental vetting process to focus our capital requests, the MBTA was still only able to meet 13% of the FY26-30 funding need, with just over $1 billion for only 108 projects. Next slide. That being said, we are still focused on delivering meaningful results. While many critical projects could not be fully funded this cycle, we are advancing work with the resources we have today to ensure that we are ready for the future. As some prime examples here, we have the Arbor Way Bus Maintenance Facility, a facility that would cost over $440 million. It's not able to be fully funded in this plan. We have $8.5 million to bring this project to 30% design so that we can proceed with full design and construction once funding is identified. Whitehead Layover and Maintenance Facility. The CIP funds initial work on the property, including demolition and design work. For the Silver Line Extension, the CIP supports design and environmental permitting work, but nothing more than that given funding constraints. And rail modernization, particularly for the Newburyport-Rockport line electrification. The CIP has $10 million to fund the construction of a traction power substation that is critical for electrifying this corridor. Next slide. And now we're coming towards the end of this. We have opened up our public engagement period. The CIP was released to the public last Thursday, March 27th. And we are actively seeking comments from both elected and public and from elected individuals and from the public writ large. We have many ways that people can submit comments, including public meetings like this. We also have another public meeting next week on Thursday that will be in person at the Action for Boston Community Development, or ABCD, right in downtown Boston. You can also fill out our online comment tool at mbta.com/CIP, send an email to cipengagement@mbta.com, or even mail a letter to the general manager. All of these things will get to us. We will go through all of them, read them thoroughly, and get answers for all of the key topics that come through here. We are very eager to get your feedback and to make sure that we are answering your questions and that your voice is being heard through our CIP. Next slide. And just looking at the next steps that we have right now. So last week we went through and presented the CIP to the full board, and that's when the CIP went public. We presented to the MBTA Advisory Board subcommittee and to the Boston MPO earlier today, and continue our public meetings through next week. The public comment period will end. The 21-day public comment period will end on April 17th, after which we will be going through and culling through all of the public comments that we receive to make sure that they are appropriately incorporated into the final CIP that we will be presenting to the MBTA Finance and Audit Subcommittee on May 15th, and hopefully followed by a full board vote on May 20th. When we do present that the full CIP, we will have a summary of the comments that we've received. We will make sure to produce high-level responses for public comments later in June with the final CIP document. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll pass this over to Ashley.
Thank you, Mike. After learning about the FY 2026-2030 Capital Investment Plan, we'd love to hear from all of you. As Mike mentioned, and as our GM mentioned, the public comment period is now open. To share a comment, we'll accept verbal and written comments, and we ask that you use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll alternate between reading your submitted comments and questions and recognizing those who'd like to speak verbally. We ask that you be brief so that you can allow as many people as possible to participate. If you'd like to speak verbally, you can use the raise hand button. And if you're on the phone, you can press *9. Attendees who speak any other language, you can still raise your hand for the interpreter to hear and repeat your comments to us in the main room. When recognized, you'll be unmuted to speak and your hand will be lowered afterwards. Before opening up the floor to the public, we invite any elected officials or their staff to ask questions or make comments, please use the raise hand feature to be recognized and I can call on you. Okay, and with that, we can now open it up to the general public as there are no elected officials or their staff present. Please feel free to use your raise hand feature or submit your question or a comment in the chat, and we'll be able to answer them. The floor is all yours, folks. Great. Evan, I see your hand raised. I'm just going to request you to unmute and lower your hand.
Hi, my name's Evan. I'm currently, as I speak, at South Station. Rode down to Braintree and back for fun. And I noticed in the CIP that you've got, you're considering order more diesel locomotives for the commuter rail. But it will be much more sustainable for the future to consider getting electric trains that can be electrified with overhead wires.
Thank you, Evan, for that comment. We do have a critical cliff coming up for our locomotive fleet. And while we do need to provide, we need to make sure that we continue to provide service. We are looking towards what electrification options can happen. But thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Evan, for your comment, and it's nice to see you again.
And can I quickly add, we are electrifying the Fairmont line. So yes, we know that, but we just can't electrify fast enough. So that is the reason for that.
Thank you for that, Alistair. Harry, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you for accepting public comment on the CIP. Was curious if you're aware of the I-90 Alston project's assumption that in 2030 there'll be layover spots for 6 consists at Widett Circle.
That is correct.
So can you help me understand how that fits in with what's being proposed in the CIP?
It's already funded in a prior year CIP cycle, just so you're aware. It's related to the battery EMU project, which you saw. That's one of the ones itemized in the CIP cycle.
Sorry, maybe I'm not sure how all this works. You said it's included in a different CIP?
It's included in one of the bigger projects. It's required for the Fairmont line electrification. So as part of one of several improvements that's in the CIP item that is for the Fairmont 20-minute battery electric service. And I think that's a long title for it, but it's identified in the CIP as an infrastructure program. So it's all the necessary infrastructure features to deliver that service.
Hello,
What
good
page
evening,
is that
folks.
on? Could you point that out?
Yeah, happy to let the team kind of take a moment to tell you the page. Mr. Madison, Lindsay Heffernan, I'm the Chief of Policy and Strategic Planning. The item that's mentioned around Widett Circle here is in particular new funding that is in order to enable the MBTA to do some important demolition and site security for the current Widett Circle. It does not include the funding. I think the point Mike was trying to make, it does not include the funding for the full build out of all the layover tracks for the future.
So how many tracks of
the current
storage
CIP
is included in this CIP?
This CIP only has what was previously funded to support the BEMUs and the money to demolish the site and secure the site for future layover. We do not have the funding sufficient for the full Widett project.
But so how much of the Widett project does this fund?
The demolition, sir, and the limited tracks to support the BEMU project or Fairmount.
So how many consists of storage does that Fairmont BEMU project include?
Alistair, I don't know the total number of track layout. Do you have that?
This is the 6-track phase 1 for the WIDET, which actually includes not just the Fairmont Line projects, but it gives it the flexibility to also include the future electric service pending for the new route. Wrong one. For the which one is it? It's the Providence line. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Alistair.
I guess you might want to issue some clarification on that because it's I see the line item that says Fairmont Line BEMU project delivery partnership program $50 million. If that's the right one, it doesn't say anything about WIDET there. Doesn't say anything about train storage. And the only place where you actually specifically call out WIDET, you put it in a category that says that it's demolition and design only and doesn't mention any train storage at all. So it's very hard to reconcile what's actually in this draft report with what you're saying verbally tonight.
Thank you for noting that, Harry. We're going to transition into another question or comment, but that does not stop you, Harry, from asking any other comments or questions. I just want to hold space for other folks that are in the room, but we can get back to you afterwards. So feel free to raise your hand again and we'll call on you. Giovanni from Green Roots asks, how is it possible to know what investments are planned directly in Chelsea in these different projects? Thanks.
So we will be going through and doing an equity analysis here. Geotagging our projects sometimes can be challenging given how sprawling they can be, and especially if they're affecting the full line. I don't have the Chelsea projects right offhand, but I'll make sure that we can get that to you. We can make sure we can provide that.
Yes, I'll definitely work with this team, Giovanni, and circle back with you on anything that is shared. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Feel free to raise your hand or submit them in the chat. How many battery electric buses are planned to be purchased in the CIP, and are these battery electric buses the ones with the diesel heaters?
I will have to double check the count for our BEV buses. We have quite a few in this one. I don't know if Seth, do you happen to have that information off the top of your head?
So we are receiving 32 of the 3-door buses for the North Cambridge facility and another 40 of the 2-door buses for the Quincy facility. And that is what is on order right now.
Thank you for that, Seth and Mike. Any other questions or comments from the folks in the room? Christopher, I see your hand raised. I'm going to ask you to unmute and lower your hand. One moment.
Hello. I definitely want to thank people for the work on the BEMU pilot. But, you know, as a citizen, I'm a bit concerned about investing in a technology like BEMUs, which I don't believe have been particularly proven in other cities. You know, I think that I understand the real constraints that the agency has, but my hope for Fairmount would be to ultimately transition that to a route with catenary. So what I wanted to figure out is basically what is the long-term plan here for the BEMUs, and whether they're going to be instrumental to ultimately, at least what I believe is, I believe the MBTA should be an all catenary system. So are the BEMUs going to be a step in that direction, or would they potentially be a wasted investment? Thank you.
Shall I take that?
Sure.
Yeah. So I think you may or may not have seen, we did a number of analyses as we moved to this plan for rail modernization. The most cost-effective approach for the whole system is a discontinuous electrification. So we are putting up some catenary in certain areas of the system. The the point and what we've discovered as we've investigated this, we are following actually quite a lot of the rest of the industry that is in this position of not having enough catenary around the system to be able to run electric service. And the most cost-effective and reliable approach is to use battery electric trains. There are a variety of approaches. We are behind several other agencies here in the US and globally. This is a proven technology. Battery electric trains have been around since the last century, start of. Different technologies have moved on, and that is why this is not a particularly high-risk, unproven technology. So we've done a lot of analysis, and we have found that this is the most cost-effective way to roll out the system. This will not be a stranded asset. This is the long-term plan for the Fairmont line. They are being specified in a way that these equipment can be used on multiple lines off the Northeast Corridor, utilizing the existing catenary. So we are coming up with a sort of fairly flexible approach to the fleet. And again, we are not alone. We're behind Caltrain, Chicago, and now actually also New York. So most of the US passenger heavy rail is looking at this option because of the expense, time, difficulty of stringing catenary. So I would rather electrify if I can and move forward. So that is the fastest way to get there at the lowest cost, given the capital constrained environment. But thank you for your concern. Thank you for your interest. And, you know, as a previous commenter already noted, we're having to potentially consider buying diesels because we have this locomotive cliff that Mike Mellier has noted already. Because our old diesels are expiring so quickly, we can't build out catenary fast enough. So this is a very flexible, right-sized solution that is proven technology, that is using existing multiple units that are in a US service right now as we speak. So it's not, we consider a high risk, and we consider this the most effective use of taxpayer money.
Thank you for that. Our next question is in the chat. What efforts are being made for accountability? We have seen myriad issues with the new orange and red line trains and with the GLX tracks. What is being done to keep contractors accountable and avoid those sorts of additional costs to the MBTA, which, as you noted, is already strapped for funds?
So one of the things that is a true focus for us right now is in project delivery and project management. We have shifted our focus both of the CIP from being a document that's more of an investment structure, laying down installments to build out full projects, to something that is focused on funding full projects or at least fully achievable scope. By starting off and giving a project a budget to actually plan to and manage to, and by continuing our investment within our project control staff, we are bringing greater accountability and a greater focus on project delivery and on managing to a budget, which has been a challenge for us in the past, but we are very much reorienting in that direction. Keeping contractors accountable. One of the things that we are also doing is trying to expand how we are going about and contracting things, especially for construction projects. We're looking into alternative delivery mechanisms such as CM at risk and design build, which is a much more collaborative process with the construction firm, and also brings designers into it. So it just gets greater synergies overall, and there's less of a chance of surprises. This is a new process for us, but it is something where we are confident it'll bring in new bidders and very competent companies into this as we try and expand what we can do here.
Thank you for that. The next question is, what are the plans related to service improvements for the Old Colony lines? Currently, these lines are constrained due to the single track segment through Dorchester. Several communities served by these lines, especially the Fall River, New Bedford line, are minority-majority communities. For example, the city of Brockton minority residents comprise more than 70% of the total population. The MBTA has 3 station stops within the city. City ridership exceeds all other communities outside of Boston. We will need to be part of the regional rail to benefit from the enhanced service frequencies. What are your plans?
Well, I'll go first. So there was again in a prior CIP a small amount of investment in looking at options for how shall I say, addressing the busiest piece of single track railroad in the country, which we now are with the opening of the Fall River New Bedford branch lines. As you may appreciate, that is a highly constrained physical corridor, and the projects are likely to be in the multi-billion dollars to try and address that and double track that section. So we have the long-term view of that. In the shorter term, we have a separate CIP item where we're actually looking at adding capacity to short sections of the old colony, now on that Fall River New Bedford line, to enable better meets, so trains be able to pass each other, to enhance capacity and reliability on the line. So we're working on that right now. That's kind of a short-term early action project as part of rail modernization. So that is the first step, but the multi-billion-dollar mega project is going to be on a very long, slow path to try and work out a suitable option to sort out JFK and that long section of single track in a cost-effective way.
Thank you for that. It looks like all of the other questions were answered in the chat. Does anyone else have any comments or questions that they would like to raise here at this time? You can use the raise hand feature, or you can write it in the chat for us. Okay. Besides the Fairmont line, are there plans to increase commuter rail frequencies on other commuter rail lines, such as the heavily ridden Newburyport-Rockport line? Has the T looked into the cost of double tracking the line through the Salem Tunnel?
So the answer to that is also yes. There is another CIP item, which was a series of investments in the Newburyport-Rockport line prior to electrification to move to 20-minute frequency. So the Salem Tunnel, again, would be an example of one of these mega projects. So we've looked at alternatives, which is modifying Beverly and Salem stations to increase capacity up to that section of single track. So we can already deliver 20-minute service without having to build the full tunnel. So it's an example of an early action that can deliver a large proportion of the benefits without the cost of a mega project. And we're also looking at doing something similar on a couple of other lines as well. So that's all part of this early actions program that was funded again in a prior CIP cycle.
Thank you for that. I'd just like to make note that we have 14 minutes left of the meeting. The next question that we have is there any CIP item for enhanced frequency on the Lowell line, in particular enhanced frequency to Anderson RTC?
So yes, that is one of the other lines that we're investigating, and we have made it in a improvement to some switches on that section of the Lowell line, and that alongside a second improvement at Lowell will enable us to increase frequency on that line, and we're looking at in the next 3 to 4 years.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other comments or questions from this room? Okay, I noticed that the Draw 1 project has a project boundary 1.5 miles north of North Station. Will that project address the slow speeds on the approach track to North Station?
I don't know what project boundary line means. Does that the way the term's being used? Mike, are you familiar with that one?
So I can, how should I say it? It's not a guess. I know what the answer is. I'm not quite sure what the project boundary line is, but I do know that the project is not just a replacement of the drawbridges. It is a reconfiguration of all the switches and track approaching those bridges. So it is as much a signal and track project as it is a bridge project. So yes, it will improve the approach speeds, both because of that track improvement, but also because of the new capacity on the bridges themselves, so you can come in faster.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments from folks in the chat? Feel free to raise your hand or write in the chat itself. Okay, the next question is, any word on when bus network redesign phase 2 will be rolled out?
Bus network redesign is not as capitally intensive of a project. It's more of an operations project to bring on enough operators. We certainly need enough fleet, and we do need to invest in, at times, partnerships with our municipalities to increase transit signalization and roadway projects. Bus network redesign, though, as I understand, phase 2, we'll be making some announcements as we get closer to the winter, and somewhat differently than phase 1, we'll be making some changes in a more of an iterative process, so rather than a whole bunch of changes on one day. They are still very much working on that, though, so that may change.
Yes, and Liam, for now, I posted some links in the chat for you to do some review on the bus network redesign, as well as what is currently listed on the website about phase 1 and phase 2 and beyond. Christopher, you mentioned that you asked, is there any funding to study extension of, is there any okay, so I think you mean, is there any funding to study the extension of the red line from Alewife to Arlington?
Not at this time, there's not. I think that one of the notices that Mike made was that of the $9.8 billion in this year's CIP, 9.5 of it is on reliability and modernization. That is replacing and fixing things that we currently have that need to be modernized, with a very, very small amount for projects towards an expansion, such as an extension of the red line. And so that limited bit of dollars will finish up South Coast Rail and Green Line extension, continuous study of red-blue connection, and a little bit of funding to support the Silver Line extension.
Great, thank you for that, Lindsay. I would like to let everyone know that we're at 7:20 and we are about 10 minutes into the end of the meeting, but we'll be sure to answer any of the questions that are remaining here, so don't worry. The next question is there any chance of funding towards progress on any of the long-promised rail connection projects besides the red-blue connector, such as the Blue Line extension to Lynn or the North-South Rail Link? Also, the proposed red line extension to Arlington that the Massachusetts legislature opened the door to last year. All would be massive improvements to how many people use the T.
Yeah, I see this one, and I'm just going to jump ahead. Also see the next one is about extending the orange and green lines. We do not currently have funding to study any of these additional expansion projects. As was mentioned, we are funding 8% of all of the projects that came in, and with the vast majority of that going to reliability and modernization, kind of doubling down on General Manager Ang's investment over the last year in track, making sure now we're investing in systems like signals and power. As was noted, we care deeply about improving service that we have today while recognizing the need and desire for Massachusetts to ultimately think about other expansions. Those dollars currently are just not available to us.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Any other questions or comments or concerns from the group? We're at 7:22 and the meeting ends at 7:30, but we're here to answer any questions or comments you may have. So feel free to write them in the chat or raise your hand. Going once, twice. Okay, Hank. No, okay. Okay. I've received 2 direct messages privately sent to me. One is, I have a question regarding security, particularly within the Dorchester area. Can you explain more? I don't have any question or comment here, and I'd love to be able to leverage that with the group here. Please message more to me. Or you can raise your hand. I don't see any more of your comment or question sent to me, but please do. Until then, I'm going to go back to the chat. What are the emission standards on the new locomotives the MBTA is purchasing? Are they new or used? And are they tier 3 or tier 4?
So before Alistair jumps in with details, I want to say we're still very much exploring. We have identified funding for what our next generation will be, and even in that regard, we haven't determined if we'll be buying or leasing. If we can identify more money for the possible electrification of some lines, that is still very much in our long-term goal. At this point in time, we do know though that we have a locomotive crisis, and we need to address locomotives. So we're going to have to, in many ways, get back to you exactly on how we will move that money forward. But it is a significant amount of money because we move so many people on that service, and our locomotives are not sufficiently reliable. And as a commuter rail passenger myself, I can attest to some of the challenges, and we know we need to address it. Alistair, I don't know if you want to add any more to that.
Yes, I do. So anything new would have to be tier 4. Because it's new and that's federal regulation. We are actually, to add and build on what Lindsay just said, we're actually studying first, as I described in the answer to something else, options to procure electric locomotives. So that is obviously our #1 preference. We can only operate those from Boston to Providence. It illustrates the issue of lack of catenary. Fortunately, Amtrak finished the final section of missing catenary on the station tracks at Attleboro, which now means we can serve all our station stops to Providence. However, we can't serve south of Providence. So the usage of those electric locomotives is unfortunately constrained, but we're still studying that and we still have a couple of potential sources. So that will be our first preference. Second preference, yeah, we've talked about potential purchase of an existing model. However, it would have to be current tier 4, and then there will be potential to modify legacy ones. And there, again, 2 of the approaches that have been used elsewhere in the US, either to convert to battery for short range or stick with diesel. And then it will be whichever tier that's grandfathered in and current for that particular locomotive. So that's in our decreasing order of intent. And the window question, yes, that is part of what the replacement, refurbished replacement program for all coaches.
Wonderful. And Hank, I asked you
Oh,
to.
sorry, can I just add one thing? Because it's only something I found out quite recently. It is unfortunately part of the problem with the federal standards for the crash worthiness of the windows that requires us to use a certain kind of plastic that doesn't age well. We would much rather use something different.
Thank you for that, Alistair. Hank, I've asked you to unmute. Are you able to communicate what you are trying to tell me in direct message?
Sure. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. So first of all, thank you for having this public forum for stakeholders here in the community. I'm a long-time Dorchester resident. Most recently, I completed a tour of duty for my multinational firm within the UK. And one of the observations I made while being stationed between Bristol and London is I was particularly impressed with sort of the security. Now, I just have a short window of time while I was there was a year. But for that time that I was there, I never felt unsafe. There was tremendous presence of security. both at Paddington and, you know, as you work your way down through the Bristol line. And I know there's a little bit difference, you know, in terms of the type of commuter situation, you know, Dorchester and inner city and so forth, but nonetheless, a wider variety of people. Can someone speak to sort of what security enhancements are being placed in this budget, this particular budget, to give people more of a sense of calm? Because the impact is not just people's safety, but it's also the impression that the wider community has about particular communities, specifically within the inner city, and that has a negative impact on real estate values and what have you as a byproduct. But can you just speak to the security enhancements that are being made, if any? Thank you.
So I can speak to the commuter rail, and also, as you can probably tell by the accent, to the reference you used. So yes, that is a somewhat more affluent and less urban service in London out to Bristol. So yes, it's quite hard to achieve that level of you know, sort of level of security and safety, and then obviously it passes through Heathrow, or well, depending on the branch you use. So that already has a lot of security focus. So that's kind of one issue. I think the second issue you're addressing is a bit more of the urban nature. I know full well London on the Underground has a lot of these issues too. So it isn't easy. We are looking in concert with the City of Boston, because a lot of the potential benefits of some of the features are not within our control as operators. So I would, how should I describe it? It's not part of the CIP, but it's actually a study that the city is looking to improve station access and the station impressions on the Fairmount line, particularly going through sort of more urban areas. And I think we'll be looking at other stations too, to the extent that's important. So we're looking at issues like lighting, access, nighttime safety, those kind of issues, sort of call access for police and things like that. And we do have the MBTA police as well, doing sort of occasional run-throughs, but it isn't something we necessarily can work on our own. So I would.
Yeah, I think I would add to that that many of the pieces of security for transit systems live on the operating budget. There are certainly capital investments that need to be made at times, but I'm happy to actually take that, and we can try to go through. There are many station projects which may have security enhancements baked into them, but we wouldn't call the whole project a security project. So we can take a look through and provide something back to whatever email address you registered with this evening, if that's reasonable.
I think it's well noted, and I have your information here, so we'll get back to you. Okay. It looks like we have answered everyone's questions. Evan, did I miss you? Is it possible to implement a congestion pricing in Boston to fund all the T's improvement the way the New York MTA has? I think that's the last question we have.
Yeah, I'm
And
happy to
then-
take that one, Ashley, real quick. I had the pleasure of serving on or supporting as staff the governor's transportation funding task force, looking at ways to fund transit and transportation in Massachusetts going forward. That report was published by the Secretary of A&F and the governor to a big press release, largely looking at ways to stabilize the budget, ideas over the next couple of years, ideas about how to transform our system, and new revenue sources were covered in that. None of those are currently being implemented, but there is some material there. I will point you in that direction as a place to begin.
Sounds great. I'll gather those materials for you, Evan, and I'll share that over. We're right at meeting end. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate your comments and your questions. We'll review this meeting as well and reach out to anyone who's registered with responses to your questions that we haven't answered or any follow-ups to that as well. Thank you again for joining us and have a great rest of your evening. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.